How does 5 transcend rationality in 3D? How's everyone doing out there today? I'm Thomas, and welcome to my channel. I do mostly educational videos on a number of different topics. Right now, we're smack dab in the middle of going over all the 144 videos that I'm doing on Tree of Life. Fractal Faculties. And if you don't know, the Tree of Life is this diagram here. Goes way back to ancient Egypt or even further. And it's basically like a map of our faculties of consciousness. You may also recognize it as the Hebrew Kabbalah. This is a different interpretation. I actually know very, very little about the Hebrew Kabbalah, but I've been immersed in studying Tree of Life from the kind of ancient Egyptian West Indian perspective, from the books called Annotated, and also my own studies into the esoteric and to the sacred sciences. And as you can see, the tree has 10 different circles. Number 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then there is an applied sphere here called the abyss. And then there is a 0 above the tree. It makes a total of 12 different categories, or what I would call faculties of consciousness. This is really what it is. It's a map of our consciousness. And those 12 different faculties you kind of delineate them thusly. The 10th sphere is our animal consciousness, wild animal consciousness, our instinct, survival, fight or flight response, law of the jungle, kill or be killed, and then also the health, the general state of the body, and the defilement and lusts of the body, which kind of work in the opposite direction. Then at the 9th sphere, we have, so the 10th sphere is already open when we're born. And the rest of the spheres, we have to kind of access them or open them up as we move up. And the 9th sphere is the first in line. And this is what we start to open up like right away when we're born. As we are in the first 5 or 7 years of our life, we are really have heightened receptivity, or what's also called mediumistic trance. We are soaking everything up from like a sponge from our environment. Everything is like amazing and mesmerizing to us, and we are fascinated, and then we eventually we imitate what we see from our caregivers or whoever else, and we imitate it and we memorize it. So we imitate it until we get it right, and then we memorize it. You know, this goes from everything to from walking to riding a bike to learning how to, you know, hold your silverware or whatever else it is, you know, putting on your shirt or brushing your teeth, all these different things. We had to learn it the hard way by watching somebody else doing it and then practicing those movements. We take a lot of that for granted at this point, but at that time in our life, it was, you know, the major focus. Okay, then the 8th sphere is when another step up, but it's similar to the 9th sphere, but it's in the public. So the 9th sphere is like our domestic sphere in the home. And then the 8th sphere is once you go out in the public, once you go out to school or to church, whatever, you're exposed to the expert opinion and the institutions and the establishment. You could even call it the cabal. And, you know, this is a faculty where it has to do with really belief systems and logical reasoning. unfortunately, the establishment opinion, the expert opinion, is a trickster. It's illusory. It's not always telling you the truth. Sometimes it is, but it can be an illusion. And so that's what ends up happening, is that we end up having to use our rational faculty to really rationalize the asphere, because they're telling us half truths and falsehoods, and they are conflicting with our own personal experiences about life. And so we are torn. And so we have to rationalize the belief systems in the asphere just to believe them. We have to really set aside our own personal experiences in order to fit in to the consensus worldview. And, the consensus itself is an illusion. It's kind of like an emperor wears no clothes kind of situation, where everybody agrees that the emperor's got a great new set of clothes because they think that everybody else thinks that too. But then once somebody bucks the trend and says, you know what, the emperor is not wearing any clothes, then you find that the consensus begins to start falling apart, where people are like, yeah, that's right, the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. And the next person says, yeah, you're right, the emperor isn't. And eventually we realize that most of the people who are part of this consensus aren't really part of the consensus. They're just pretending to be, because they think that everybody else is part of the consensus. So it really takes people to call BS on this asphere, in order for the consensus to fall apart, because this whole thing falls apart. And I really do have a theory that the tree of life might have looked quite different at one point. It's quite reasonable to think that the upper part of the tree of life is still intact, but this lower part of the tree of life, we had the seven, he was all in the middle, and then this asphere just invaded. It basically invaded, and it's set up even to the seventh sphere, and it forced the seventh sphere to come over here, and it occupied the tree. It's not necessarily even originally part of the tree. That's just my own theory on it. But the asphere is just in stark contrast to the rest of the tree, as far as what I can tell. Now, the seventh sphere is for people who've tasted or sniffed the asphere, and they smelled a rat. They recognize that there's something wrong here. And where the asphere is about the real world, the seventh sphere is the imaginary world. So the seventh sphere is the people who imagine something better than what's going on here, and they use their faculties of imagination, also inspiration, intuition, creativity, and also a pleasure principle, to propose something better than what's being offered here. But what they eventually find out is that nobody really cares. Their alternative isn't really accepted, and they recognize that in order to get your opinion, your alternative accepted, you really have to climb all this way up up to here, where you're actually above the asphere, and then you can trumpet. But from here, all you really get is offers from over here to co-opt your invention or your creative your creative product. So the seventh sphere, through inspiration, is able to climb up here to the sixth sphere. And the sixth sphere is really the center of this whole tree, and it's where we're located all the time. It's our free will faculty, our ability to pay attention, and our ability to make decisions. And the paying attention, though, is normally directed down into this 8, 9, and 10 matrix here, which is all our habits and conditionings and our lusts and defilements, and it's our comfort zone. It's what we grew up with, what we're used to. And but the other aspect of free will is our ability to make decisions. And the first decision we make at the sixth sphere is to turn our backs on 8, 9, and 10, ignore 8, 9, and 10, and turn ourselves around and start paying attention to the higher aspects of us inside, up higher on the tree. And the first one of those is the fifth sphere. And the fifth sphere is our sense of justice. And you can think of also that as karma. What comes around goes around. As you sow, so shall you reap. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And you can think of there being like a mirror right here. You act, this is where our attention is focused. And so our actions feed back to us. And karma feeds back to us based on violence, waste, and violation. And so if we act violently, we will get returned violently. If we violate people, we will be violated in return. And so once we actually start paying attention to the feedback we're getting from karma, using karma not as our enemy but as our teacher, we can begin to clean up our behavior and make our behavior more nonviolent, non-violative, and less wasteful. Same is true on the fourth sphere, where the fifth sphere is about the enforcement of the natural law or karma. The fourth sphere is about the articulation of this natural law, which comes through in cosmology and also holy books and theories of everything. Any type of media that attempts to describe how everything works and how it all fits together, including, God and human beings, what our place is here, what our purpose is, where we came from, and all of that. And those different cosmologies have been assembled over the centuries by civilizations, and some are better than others. Your best bet is to compare and contrast, to examine many different cosmologies. There's a lot of people out there who know the Bible backwards and forwards, but they don't know any of the other cosmologies. And there are people out there that maybe they know the Quran backwards and forwards, but they don't know any of the others. I think it's best to try to get a wide sample of different cosmologies and let them marinate around in your own mind for a long time, and find out what resonates with you, but also be very willing to change that, to adjust that based upon new findings that you make. So be steadfast and studious, but also be very flexible and willing to admit that you were wrong, willing to admit that this new information changes things. And so, kind of an unorthodox kind of approach. Then we've got the abyss here, and this is about our psychic powers. This is our response to different coincidences or synchronicities that happen in our lives. The first is the psychic receptivity, and that is our ability to simply notice these different anomalous or synchronistic things that happen in our lives. And then the second is our psychic heat, which is our ability to actually be able to act upon those things. To be able to act upon the coincidences in our lives is a difficult proposition, because it requires us to step out of our comfort zone and into an unknown area, and to put ourselves out there to vulnerability. And so those are the two main aspects of the psychic powers. There are higher psychic powers that have to do with telekinesis and clairvoyance and things like that. Those you can tap into at the top of the abyss. but some of those are very illusory as well, because they they goad us into thinking that that's actually the path, when it is really only just a byproduct of being on the path. And really, the psychic powers don't necessarily have anything to do with really our spiritual development. They're It's just kind of part of the territory. Okay, then 3, 2, and 1 above the tree are our divine faculties within. We've got omnipotence, all powerful. We've got omniscience, all knowing. And we've got omnipresence, all everywhere, all at once, eternally. And these things, we tap into the omnipotence through, in the omnipotence, it sounds like it's omnipotent, like you can do anything, but it's really, you can do anything that is humanly possible. Now, some things that are not humanly possible, you can do through the psychic powers, but that's not really part of our path. That's just a parlor trick. But using the omnipotence is to be able to do things that are important to you, your mission in life. You develop your mission in life here at the top of the seventh sphere, and everybody has a mission in life, something that they're put here to do. Very few people actually figure out what that is and act upon it. At the third sphere, you can manifest the goals of your mission by tapping into your omnipotence. And this is done through synchronized sound or mantra or other synchronized sound. The second sphere, omniscience, is the same. It's not, you don't know everything, but you know what you need to know. You know how to solve all your problems, and even to avoid your problems before they arise. And you can do this either through a divination system, if you can't summon the proper mental discipline. You use a chance process to summon the oracle or the divination system. This is really done from the sixth sphere. You tap into the second sphere. Or you can actually get to the second sphere legitimately through being able to quiet down your mind enough to sink, to calm your mind. Like if your mind was a body of water, you can, if the body of water becomes calm enough, then you can see right through it. And that's how calm your mind has to be before you can see through your mind to the center or to the bottom of your mind, which is where your divine spark is located, your deepest center or your core. And so this is at the second sphere, you're able to actually see your core, the core of your mind. And that's wisdom, the ability to solve problems. At the first sphere, not only are you able to see to the core of your being, but you actually are able to be at the core of your being. And that enables you to recognize that what's at the core of your being is exactly the same thing that's at the core of everybody else's being. It's a singularity, and we all share in it. And so it's a unifying factor. And that's omnipresence, all present. And then the zero sphere above the tree is really our mystery, a mystery and a nothingness. We don't have a direct access to the zero sphere. The zero sphere is part of the creator, but it's not part of the universe. You can think of it almost as the rules of the game. It's the elements of the universe that preceded the universe, that went into the formation of the universe. And I like to think of those as really the numbers and the rules of math. And so I really think of the zero sphere as really being numbers, and the first sphere as really being the geometry. So those are the things that really underlie the universe, and that lie outside of the universe, um, for us to that went into the creation of it. Okay, so we'll be talking about that today, because, well, so you got these 12 different categories. Now that's the beginner aspect of the tree. Now if you want to go a little bit more advanced, what you do is you take the whole tree, all 12 categories, and you shrink it down, and you superimpose it upon each one of the 12 of the tree. So you're taking it to another level. 12, you break this down to 12, you break this down to 12, you break this down to 12, and so on, for a total of 144 mini faculties, or what I call fractal faculties, or stages of life and consciousness and spirituality and history. And those stages are not, like in history, they're not chronological, but they are dramatic. So these are different dramatic stages that we go through as we go through our lives, different stages. And I've made a list of those 144 fractal faculties, and that's what I present in these videos. Each video presents a different one. So the first 2/3 or 3/4 of the video is the beginner's aspect of just going through the 12. But then at the end of the video, I'll go through one of the 144 different fractal faculties. And so today we are looking at number 139. How does 5 transcend rationality and 3D? And so this is number 139 is a fractal of the zero sphere. And it really is the fifth fractal of the zero sphere. So the zero sphere has to do with the numbers, it has to do with nothingness, and it has to do with the mystery. And then the fifth sphere within it certainly implies the number 5, but 5 also on the tree is the justice, sense of justice, karma, and it's also analysis. And so those different factors are what we're talking about here when we're talking about number 139. And number 139 is called After the Flip, 5 stars, 5 fingers, 3D to 5D. Stage number 139 is about 5, the square root of 5, and phi, coming from a higher dimension. The pyramid is derived from 5 balls. Phi is derived from the square root of 5. Phi, or phi, P-H-I, the Greek letter, phi, is derived from the square root of 5. Phi and its reciprocal equals the square root of 5 plus or minus 1, the quantity divided by 2. The square root of 5 comes from a 2-to-1 ratio. The 2-to-1 right triangle has a hypotenuse of the square root of 5, which you get from the Pythagorean theorem. The pentagon and the 5-pointed star inscribed inside it embed phi. The Fibonacci sequence and its counterpart, the phi power sequence, converge on the phi ratio, perpetually replicating itself. And the phi power series or sequence converges, or the R sequence converges on this phi power series. The fifth finger gives us a grip like no other. Thumbs up. Gives a balance to the other 4. Harmonically, 5 is out of phase with 4, moving in the opposite direction. In harmonics, 5 is -4. So when you count in harmonics, you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is -4, 6 is -3, 7 is -2, 8 is -1, and then 9 is back to 0. Since we have a grip, nothing that happens has the inherent power to cause a reaction or effect, because one is secure in the womb of the Creator. Happiness, or inner peace, is the ability to remain at peace no matter what is happening. Independent peace. And that is another aspect of the zero sphere, is inner peace, being happiness, being knowing that you're in the universe and that you're under the control of the Creator, and therefore, whatever happens is exactly what's supposed to happen, and everything is just fine. So that gives you inner peace. And that comes from having a grip. And having a grip is coming from the opposable thumb, which is the 5th finger. And the other 4 fingers are, moving in the other direction. So it all fits together with 5. And we will have time to discuss at length the phi ratio, how it comes out of 5, and how it works in the universe in future episodes. But for today, that's just the 5th fractal of the zero sphere, number 139. And thanks for tuning in today. And tomorrow I'll be whipping out another one of these 144 fractal faculties. So click the like button. You can share the video with others. Subscribe to the channel. You can click the link in the description to get the list of the 144 fractal faculties. You can also hit me on Venmo or Cash App in the description if you'd like to donate to the channel. And I do have some other books and articles that are for sale. If you inquire about them, we can work something out. Otherwise, have a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow.